Alright, welcome back to another video on Wing Commander 3. This time I'm going to be doing a retrospective and review of the video game, not another mission or cutscene or anything of that nature. So with just one quick revision from my last video for Wing Commander 1 and 2, I did give Wing Commander 2 a 5 stars out of 5. You know, looking back on it, it's probably more of a 4 out of 5. So I just want to, make a quick revision there. Good game, but there are definitely some issues with it. I don't want to make it sound like, it's a flawless game. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get into this one right here. So, one thing about Wing Commander 3, there was quite a bit of improvements, to say the least. Personally, I felt that the actual graphics of the game were actually quite well improved. I thought I actually really did enjoy the engine and everything that was there. Took a little bit of getting used to the different way of the the lasers. Prior to the Wing Commanders, you're shooting basically big balls of energy, for lack of a better word, and it just had a different feel to it than the more precise, I guess, laser shooting that was in this game. So that took a little bit of adjusting, but overall I thought the graphical presentation was pretty greatly improved, to say the least, for the in-game portion. The sound likewise was improved. I wouldn't say greatly improved, because I personally felt that the MT32 sound was very good in the first two Wing Commander games, but the General MIDI was a step up, just not a huge step up. The graphics were definitely a much bigger, improvement than the sound. One of the things that I will say, I was just thinking about it, at least in this game, there was that when you got very close to death in the original two games, they would play that very grating music, and there was nothing like that in this game. So that was, actually nice, to say the least. Now, one thing that I guess obviously hasn't aged well with time, and pretty much almost everyone's going to agree with, is the cutscenes. The cutscenes definitely look very grainy. Back when it came out and you had either a fairly low resolution monitor or a television, in case you had this on like 3DO or PlayStation, it probably looked okay on something like that. But today's HD monitors and TVs, it's just really, really grainy and kind of hard to see a lot of times. And this also may be part of the emulation. I think one of the things that was more jarring to me initially was how the screen would flicker when you would jump from one scene to the next in the within the same cutscenes, and that was kind of jarring. But I guess after a while you just kind of get used to it and accept it. So the cutscenes definitely haven't aged well at all, and I don't really know if there's anything you can do about that, because of the way it was shot and filmed and things of that nature. So that's okay. But let's talk about storyline, and this also kind of brings me back to why I kind of give a little more criticism to Wing Commander 2, is the fact that the storyline, there definitely is plot holes there, to say the least. So the storyline is, I'd say, adequate, maybe a little bit above average even, to a certain extent. But then, it just falls back on that same old trope of, we've got a traitor on board, and this traitor, is causing everything to go bad. And once again, just like Wing Commander 2, the whole explanation for here's a traitor, and here's why Hobbs betrayed everybody. Well, first of all, if you watched any of the videos that I did, it doesn't really explain why Hobbs betrayed everything. There's no explanation as to why Hobbs was basically an inside, threat, basically, and it just is never explained. And especially it just comes out of left field, considering his storyline in Wing Commander 2 just really comes out of left field. And you have to go into a cutscene. One of the cutscenes. I'm turn this stupid thing off. Dang you, Google. But anyway, you have to go into one of the cutscenes that is provided with GOG, and you have to see that basically he was saying he was brainwashed by Prince Thrakath, and he had an overlaying psyche and everything. Apparently that was included in, I think, the 3DO and maybe the PlayStation versions, but it wasn't included here. So if you were one of these people that played on the PC originally, you never knew that was their explanation. But even if that was their explanation, it was dumb. Just like in Wing Commander 2, the explanation for the traitors' motives is just dumb. And that does definitely detract from the storyline for sure. And then so, you have this big, giant planet killer, and in a way, it doesn't make the Confederation much better than the Kilrathi. One of the things that they had always said was, hey, we're the good guys, we're not going around killing innocent civilians. Well, we've blown up 3 planets now. Whoops. So the whole idea, we have this giant planet killer weapon. Oh, that got blown up. Don't worry, we have a backup plan with this bomb that can do the same thing. It was kind of lazy writing. So like I said, I don't know if I'd even say above average storyline. I'd say adequate just to move things along. It wasn't its greatest strength, which for all intents and purposes at the time, that was probably what everybody was saying was the greatest strength of the game. Looking back on it, the story is not that great. It's adequate, is what I'll say, just adequate. Personally, I did like the actual game itself. Was actually very fun. Still, one of the things that annoys me about the game is the fact that your wingmen have literally no autonomy at all. They don't break and attack unless you tell them to, usually, which is still just an annoying feature of all these first 3 games for sure. But one of the things that started to rear its head in certain areas, especially the Alcor system, is the difficulty spikes. It's just very huge difficulty spikes, and the mission design is almost like some of those missions back in the Wing Commander 1 expansion pack days. Just absolutely insane odds. However, I do have to give credit where credit's due, so getting into the options to actually change these things is very easy. Just Control O and you pull up the options. And well, for starters, one of the nice things that they've included are difficulty levels, because you never had a selection of difficulty level before. So that's a huge improvement. It definitely is. I mean, it made the game much more enjoyable when I dropped it down to veteran. I wish I didn't have to drop it down to veteran. That's where some of the poor mission design comes into play. But the fact that I had an option to do that rather than, oh, I just either got to put on invincibility or suffer. So having the option to change difficulty levels is actually really neat. And there's quite a lot of things in there. You can turn off collision damage and whatnot, and you can just go in there, point and click, and change various settings around. So it's very convenient and a good feature, I would say. It's only a shame that I had to figure out how to get into that menu, because some of the mission design was kind of insane. It was just kind of insane. There is one thing I do want to criticize it though, as far as graphics are concerned. One thing I noticed is the planet side missions, like where you're flying above a moon or whatever the planet is. It was almost like the graphics for that were something I saw back on my 286 back in the day when like playing Gunship or Jet Fighter. The terrain just looked horrible. So in space everything looks great, but when you got onto the planet graphics it was just an afterthought. So I do want to, where I'm starting to hear gushing about how good the graphical improvements and everything, well, I do want to point out that, yeah, the in the atmosphere graphics were just, it seemed like something from maybe 6-7 years ago. That's how poorly detailed it was. It just wasn't very good, the planet side graphics. So I do want to point that out. Other than that, you know, the space portion of the game, which let's be fair, it was like over 90% of the game was in space. It looked really good. So yeah, I think if I was going to sit here and give this game a final score using the GOG star method, I would probably give it and Wing Commander 2, give them both a 4 stars out of 5. And it's because, I mean, they're good games. I definitely enjoyed my time with Wing Commander 3, you know, despite its flaws. Yes, it's a good game. There are flaws. I would say in a way it was improved over Wing Commander 2 just because of the options and whatnot that you had. But I think there's more of that frustrating mission design aspect from the first Wing Commander kind of crept its way back in, and that kind of puts it almost equal with Wing Commander 2, because Wing Commander 2 for the most part didn't have too frustrating of any missions, as it were, overall. Whereas in Wing Commander 3, some of these missions were just absolutely asinine and are just kind of hard to get a grasp of. But yeah, definitely a very good game, flawed, and like I said, the only place to get it nowadays for DOSBox legally is through GOG.com, and the price is $5.99. Normally, that's a pretty decent price, but like I said before, these things go on sale all the time on GOG. You can probably get it for like $1.50 or $2.50 or something like that when it goes on sale. I forget what I paid for it because I almost never buy anything full price. Horrible admission, I guess, but that's me. I'm cheap. Anyway, I think it's definitely worth the price of admission, especially if you can get it on sale. It's definitely worth a playthrough. Just realize the cutscenes are going to be a bit of a disappointment compared to the actual game itself, which is just rendered at a much better level with DOSBox. And I will say that when I set the cycles to 100, I think it 100,000. Let me point that out. 100,000. It worked perfectly. I never had any slowdowns at all that I can even think of in game. It is locked to 24 frames per second, and not once did I ever see any slowdown in game. Technically, if I had the frame per second monitor going, you would see a bit of a slowdown when launching, but who cares? That's not that big of a deal. Performance-wise, it was perfect. I mean, way better than Wing Commander 2. Wing Commander 2 wasn't bad, but I mean, yeah, performance-wise, it was almost perfect. I can't even ding it on that. Yeah, I say definitely recommend it if you're into space sims, or you want to, you know, look back at where things started to get a little more modernized. This is kind of where the turning point of the Wing Commander series is, and it's definitely, you know, worth checking out. So that's it for this video. I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.